Hi team, here's a quick explainer video on how to tackle evaluate achievement of goals questions. This is something that's been coming up more frequently in the exams, and so we thought in case people miss the lesson on this, you've got this to refer to at a later date. Okay, so overall, this quick video is going to go through why they ask this question. Then we're going to go through specific past assessor requirements, what they've been looking for, and then give you tips on how to actually create your response. So, why do they ask this question? Well, generally speaking, economics isn't a memorization subject, it's an understanding subject. And so the assessors want you to kind of show that you know what's been going on in the economy. That's that historical economic situation. They also want to see students develop from a basic memorization-based understanding of the goals into more in-depth knowledge of the goals, kind of beyond the percentage target range. And then based on that, show this nuance, which is, kind of subtle detail in measuring achievement or non-achievement of those goals. So this is one of those really big hitter questions that are difficult to get full marks on and is put in the exam to differentiate between the good and the great responses. So what I've gone through in this particular video is kind of two approaches that you can take here. So depending on what your goals are in this particular subject, a medium level response for evaluate the achievement of the goals is going to contain these things. It's going to contain an understanding, definition of the goal, and then those particular responses are going to show, based on historical information, where it was achieved and where it wasn't achieved. And those particular students getting a medium level response are primarily going to use the percentage target range of those economic indicators that are attached to the goals. Now, for those students that are offering a high level response, they're going to do those things above, but they're also going to support their arguments with statistics, with actual numbers, and they're also going to show an understanding of that particular goal that is beyond just that percentage target range. And what I mean by that is your goal definitions will usually have other words in them to show the nuance, to show the balance, and it's students that bring that knowledge in to show where the goal maybe wasn't achieved to the extent it could have been, or was achieved in an area that potentially it couldn't. So, how are we going to go through our responses? Well, like with all goal questions, you're just going to smack that goal straight at the top of your response, but you're going to fully define it. Yeah, this is going to be usually a large mark question, and so detail matters. The second thing you're going to do there is just briefly describe what's been happening with that goal or with that economic indicator attached to that goal in the past couple of years. So ideally, we've got some numbers in here and we've got a recent trend of either an increase or a decrease. Then, for the third kind of section, you're going to show in the past where it has been achieved, and then the next section you're going to change in the past where it was not achieved. And this is where, in these steps 3 and 4, where the students are really going to differentiate themselves on, are you just using the percentage target range, or are you bringing in other information beyond that? This is marked globally normally, which means it's not usually like 1 mark for this, 2 marks for this. Your assessors are going to read this response, and then at the end, they're going to get a vibe for how detailed is this compared to the other ones that I'm likely or I have seen. And so you might be the third response that they receive out of 200, and you want to make sure that that assessor goes, yep, we're not going to get any better than this. So detail is important. Okay, so I've got a sample response here. I'm going to move myself over to the other side. Whoa! So you can see. All right, so I've just written a practice question here. So it's going to look fairly similar to this, but just the goal will be different. So this one will start with the word evaluate. Evaluate the extent to which the goal of full employment has been achieved in Australia in the past 2 years. Now, unlike business management and some other subjects, evaluate doesn't necessarily need you to make a call. It doesn't need you to give an opinion over whether it has or hasn't. You just need to show detail in an exploration of both sides. Okay, and then so you'll see that in the structure that we've got here. You're going to start with the goal definition, past trend, where it was met plus statistics, where it was not met plus statistics. You'll notice there's no line in there that says like an overall vibe. You don't need to do that for economics. So what can that look like? All right, you might need to pause to see the actual words here because I wanted to try to squeeze it all on one page. So again, I might move myself up. Whoa! So you can see. So I'm not going to go through the goal. You guys all know what the goals are. And then you're just going to give a brief statement of what's been happening with that goal. So this one is unemployment. And so unemployment rate has risen from this to this. So pretty much rote learning from here on in. Your next section is going to be where it has been achieved. And so here we've got, you can see in this first section, I've got a specific date here, and then I've got a specific number. So as unemployment rates have risen, so since 2025, this is indicating an economy where there is less upwards pressure on wages and thus inflation. And so here what I'm doing is I'm not necessarily, I'm using the percentage target of unemployment, but I'm showing the assessor that I understand why that target is important, and the link here is with inflation. And then go on to say this level of unemployment is more consistent with NAIRU, where unemployment is low but isn't causing inflationary concerns. And so what I like to do here is link back to a section of the definition or a section to an understanding of that goal to say, hey, we've met it because of this particular part of the goal. So that's like the where it has met. And the second section is going to be where it has not met. And then I've gone here, you're going to see some fairly technical language here. And this is what you're going to need to get full marks in these particular questions. Look at how I've started this particular response with the word however. Hey, assessor, I'm putting a signpost. I'm looking at the other side now. However, as unemployment is a lagging indicator, it may not be showing the true nature of unemployment today, as the upward trajectory is currently reflecting poor economic performance in jobs growth and overall GDP. So I'm saying, look, the number here is okay, but remember, unemployment statistics are a lagging indicator. So they're kind of indicating what's been happening, before. And then I continue on. This is reflected in a rising underemployment rate, meaning that the percentage target may be achieved, but there is growing spare capacity in the labour market, indicating non-achievement of the goal. And you can use that language, achievement and non-achievement, to help show the assessor what you're looking at there. You'll see the main idea in this final section here is the idea of spare capacity, which at the end of the day is what NAIRU is actually all about. We use the unemployment percentage as an indicator of that, but we essentially want as little spare capacity as possible without triggering unemployment. And you can see there you've got to bring in that extra level of detail to get those full marks. So here are some tips. And again, I'll move myself down over there that time. All right, what are your tips here? Well, make a plan. Am I just aiming for, medium level score, or do I really want to go for the high score? The second tip I would have is just memorize your numbers. In fact, this whole response, there's only 3 ways we can ask this question, and it's on the 3 goals. And so I'm not writing it on the screen there, but a little tip is you can pre-prepare your responses for this particular question and show it to your teacher to get feedback ahead of the actual assessment, should it be on the SAC. And then the final part, as I mentioned earlier, integrate the extra parts of your definition in your justifications. So what I mean by that is the example I used is the extra part of full employment is this idea of spare capacity. If you are doing low inflation, well, that is a stable. The word stable is in the definition. So you might use that word as we haven't achieved it. Yes, we might be in the target range, but we haven't achieved it because it's not stable. Or for strong and sustainable economic growth, well, you've got the 3 very easy extra ones in there. You might say, yeah, while unemployment is low, we're not consuming environmental resources as much, because you're using the extra part of the definition beyond the percentage target range. And so bringing in those extra parts is the bit that your assessors are going to be looking for. You've got to also bring in the main parts, but to get those higher marks, you need to add on the howevers with the understanding of the additional parts to the goal beyond the percentage target range. So hopefully that can help you understand how we actually tackle this. Broadly speaking, you just want 2 sides. You want 2 sides on where we have, where we haven't, and then how much detail you go into your understanding of that goal will determine whether or not you get a medium or a high level response.